what is up, everybody? It's quite a fitting place to start this video, as this is the road that I started my first vlog. And there's a couple of things I'm going to talk about today, and you'll already guessed by the title what one of them is, and what they both are. There's two real things I'm going to talk about. So foremost, I'd like to say thank you to everybody that supported me and the channel, as I've just clocked over 2,000 subs, which is amazing. I never thought I'd have achieved something like that. I think I'm a year and a bit into it now. I think I started last February, 2015 February, so about a year and a half-ish in now. And I'd really like to be putting out more content. You know, I don't understand how people enjoy a lot of my footage on this bike, because it's boring in my eyes. I find footage boring. Maybe it's because it's myself, I don't know. But I try and put out obviously a lot of the test ride videos because they're a little bit more engaging, and you can see sort of my opinion of a couple of different bikes, you know, being compared to what else I've rode. But a big thank you for all the support, you know. All the social media pages are getting a bit more love, and that will come with time. And I try and put, you know, different things on there to try and engage people, you know, more so than just the videos. And it's just gap fillers as well, you know, things to just you know, I'm not completely inactive, you know, just put pictures out there and stuff like that. Other things that are going on that I can't particularly put in a video at this given time, especially the project bike. You'll see a lot of stuff on there with the project bike. Obviously, I am recording footage, but I'm not going to upload it until the bike's finished, and it'll be unveiled, and then the footage of the build will come out, and you'll see, you know, the finished product. If I was slow, I'd have picked up that flag and thrown it straight back in a window. Another thing, actually, that's just sparked my memory. Another thing that really pisses me off is people that either flicking ashes out their window when someone's behind them, especially on a bike. Well, very recently, it's happened about 3 times in the space of about a month. There's people fucking using their, I don't know what you call it, the window wiper fluid, just spraying that all over the front of you. And it's just like, fuck's sake, you know, what a piss take. Use your fucking mirrors and just look at what's behind you, you know, and choose a more appropriate time to do it. Let's just fucking drive mad over this way. Which really fucking pisses me off. But yeah, anyway, back to the main point is I'm trying to put out as much footage as I can and try and switch it up a bit and do reviews and you know, limit the amount of time I'm actually talking on this, because it bores the death out of me, so I'm surprised it doesn't bore the death out of everybody else. But the other main point of this video is, and why it's titled such, is how to kill a Honda. And I did it, finally. I killed my bike. And obviously I'm not particularly proud about it, but it's something you've got to laugh about because you live and learn. Now basically what happened was, in the long and short, is I ran it out of oil. The only way you will ever kill a Honda engine, realistically, running it out of oil, or any engine, but I mean, you know, Hondas are renowned for being bulletproof, and you can see on the clock there, it went at 22.6. And you know, it probably was doing a little bit more than that mileage wise, because I had a couple of times where I was awaiting speedo cables and the speedo drive from Thailand and places like that, because that's the only place I get it ordered from. So it probably did around about this mileage. But I'll put up the clip, or patch the clip in, you can have a look at that. And it's basically, I'm riding along, and I'm very close to the red line, but I mean, it's not as if that made a difference. You know, if it had oil in it, it'd have been fine, and it probably would have gone for a lot longer than it did. But I go to change up a gear, and it almost sort of confuses my brain. I almost think as if I've changed down a gear, because the bike just jerked forward, and the video doesn't do it justice. It felt a lot more exaggerated when I was on the bike. You know, it almost felt as if someone had just grabbed a handful of my front brake. I just jerked forward, and I think I literally lost about 10 miles an hour almost instantly. and that was of course more than likely the top end going, and you'll hear it. There'll be another part that I'll patch in after that of it actually sort of shitting its pants, as I like to call it, of me at a set of lights, and you can hear the top end tapping away. And of course I then later found out that I'd completely run it out of oil like a fucking idiot. And shit happens, you know, you live and learn. I never ever check my oil, and I certainly will do now. But anyway, I'll throw that clip up, have a look at that, laugh at it, and then you'll be brought back to me talking. So yes, I mean, I found out that's what happened, and as I said, I've never checked my oil before, I don't think. You know, I just keep up to the regular service interval, change it every 2,500 miles, which is the recommended service interval for this bike. So that's what I usually do, every 2,500 miles, you know, another litre of oil, dump the old oil, another litre of oil goes in. I've never had any problems, as I said, you know, for probably 23,000 miles that I've covered almost on this bike, all but I think 4,000 it had when I bought it. So, you know, the majority, well over the majority of this life I've had this bike, and I almost know it like the back of my hand. And you know, 4-strokes are known to burn a bit of oil, and it wasn't smoking before it happened. You know, the engine was pretty sound, you know, and I was achieving them pretty awesome speeds out of it. So I never had any problems with the engine of this bike. I've never really had any problems overall with the bike. Just silly things, mainly because of aftermarket stuff that I put on it, like rear sets. Let's go to the usual spot. Give me somewhere to go. Yeah, so, you know, it'll show you where it is as well. If you can trail back from the Basildon Hospital, which is just up there, you'll find out where it is. And you maybe see me down there one day. But yeah, so what was I saying? Yeah, never had any problems until that. And you live and learn, you know. And funny enough, I had oil on order, so it could have been the case that it just needed a bit of a top up, you know, and it wasn't enough for it to get to the oil pump. I'm pretty sure they have an oil pump. I'm really not sure, but you know, it was an order, and I was at work, I think, on the day that a couple of parcels were missed, and it happened. Saturday it happened. I missed a couple of parcels, as I said, on a Friday, and then on Monday the oil came, of course, after which it was all sorted, fortunately enough. I think it was something like that day-wise, I can't really remember. So basically what happened was, obviously it was tapping away. I mean, when it happened, it scared the life out of me, you know, because I mean, at first you sort of see me sort of look down and click up and down a couple of gears, because I thought I'd click down. And then I've had a problem with this before, where with the old engine I had bolts instead of studs, so they sometimes come a bit loose and it would blow, and it'd almost make a slight tappy noise. And obviously when you've got the helmet on, it sort of distinguishes, no, it's not distinguished, but you can't hear the noise as much, you know. But then after a couple of minutes I soon realised that, you know, it wasn't the exhaust slightly loose, because it does lose a bit of power like that. And I mean, the engine was still pulling 70 with no oil in it, and seemingly the rings have gone. I haven't taken it apart. I haven't had the time to take it apart and examine what I actually killed. But yeah, so I got home, I messaged a friend. Funny enough, I'm sure there's a clip up of me riding the new shape black CBR125. If not, there's definitely one of the white one, and the white one is owned by the same person who owned the black CBR, and he got knocked off it a long while back, and he fucked all the forks, or the crash fucked the forks, but the engine had 5,500 miles on it. So I spent God knows how long getting it in. I think I finished and it was ready to fire up at 3:30 in the morning, and it didn't fire up. The only thing I was getting was popping and banging, and there's not really much to connect. You've got a couple of radiator hoses, you connect the fuel injector onto the manifold, obviously bolt on the exhaust, and then you've got, I think, an earth and a two earths. I think one goes to the starter solenoid and one goes to the battery. That's it. And it just wouldn't fire up. All you just get is popping and banging. The engine had compression, we had spark, we had fuel. So everything was covered, you know, all the basics were covered. It had everything it would need to fire up, but it just wouldn't go. And I couldn't work it out. And a little bit of research turned out that because it was the new shape engine, the flywheel, there's a ignition sensor inside the left casing. And it was all plug in and play as well. There was no difference in looms. I think the only thing that was different was the lambda sensor, and I soldered it even though I could have just pulled my connector off of the lambda and put it back in to the other engine, because they're the same lambda sensor, it's just a different loom connection. But I soldered them anyway, so that's fine. But other than that, it was all plug in, but it just wouldn't go, as I said, and it turned out to be the flywheel. Now I thought initially there would be a different amount of pickups on the flywheel, but there isn't. They just start at an earlier or later time on my engine. So it was just telling the engine to fire at the wrong time, or the plug to fire at the wrong time, which obviously that's why it didn't start. So obviously at that time it was 3 o'clock in the morning, we called it a day, and I did a bit of research the next day, found out that that's what it was. Got a flywheel puller tool, took my flywheel out of my engine first, because then we could have obviously been idiots. Thanks, you're in the middle of the road. Yes, took it out of my engine first, and then took the casing off the new engine, which is this one with, as I said, about 5,000 miles on it. Looked at them, and they both had the same amount of pickups. I was sort of scratching my head. I thought, for fuck's sake, this is just not going to work. But then we looked at where it lined up, or where it should align on the crank, I think. And it turned out that they started at an earlier or later point, so it was just a case of, yeah, put that one in, and that was it. Perfect. Fired up first time, turned the key on, obviously, I think give it 5 seconds for, you can hear the pump priming, held the button in for 3 seconds maybe, fired straight up. Now, I will say one thing I've noticed, this engine is geared very differently from mine, and you'll see it. Mine used to do 80 in fifth below the red line, this doesn't. If you really want to, it's 11,500 on this in fifth. It could possibly be inner gearing's different, or it could be that my sprockets are different from the other one's sprockets as standard. Obviously I'm still running standard sprockets, but the standard sprockets on the newer bike may be slightly different, which is obviously why it's gearing differently. But I will say sixth gear on my bike was an overrun by far, had no pull to it, was just has a slight amount of pull to it. And give this engine its due, I've had 90 out of it, you know, tucked down and all that rubbish, but it's not as fast, it's nowhere near as fast. But it's one of them things, you know, I think my engine was just a bit of a special engine. But, you know, this is still getting me around, and as I said, it pulls 70 all the time, as they would normally. There's a blackbird. So yeah, you know, I can't really complain. It's still getting me around, and I've not got long, as I said, I've really not got long. Early next year will be when I'm on my my A2 project bike, when it's finished, I'll be on it. So it's not too long left. So I'm not bothered about this having a slight difference in speed. It's a bit of a pain because, you know, mine was sit at 80 all day long in fifth. Whereas this, you've got to work the box a bit more between fifth and sixth to keep it there. But, you know, it's one of them things, you know, you've got to get over it, and ultimately it's my fault. But fortunately enough, obviously the guy with the engine is a good friend of mine, paid £100 for the engine. So it was a reasonably cheap mistake and a lot of man hours, and it's a lesson learned, you know. I mean, I probably check this oil every day now, probably after every ride. Oh cheers, just run over that bottle. Yeah, probably after every ride I'll check the oil and make sure it's all good, and it is. But it's just, you know, that panic station now where it's happened to me once and I can't afford for it to happen again, not just in terms of financially, but just mentally. I can't fucking do the engine again. That is just such a fucking pain in the ass. But yeah, so that's the way it is. It's good fun. It is good fun. You know, you learn a lot, and it was interesting taking the engines apart to that extent. I mean, I have got a different clutch in my engine, and I've now put it in this engine, and I'll probably throw a clip up as well of that. The clutch used to slip in the other engine like fucking mad. I don't know why. He said it never happened to him when he was can't do it every now and again. Never happened to him when he was riding it, but you know, I'd get to the point where I'd be like this, change gear, and it just would stay there for a good 4 seconds and then slowly wind back and then catch back up. It was atrocious, it really was. And I think my original engine, I think when it got to about 10,000-ish, it started to slip at 70. You'd just be going along and it'd just go, just rev up a little bit. So I changed it to an EBC one, and I believe it had one extra clutch plate or one extra sort of the retaining plates. So it just made it a bit tighter or whatever, but it never had any problems with that clutch. So I just swapped the clutches over, another few hours work, and it's fine, you know, it's almost back to how it was, minus being a slight bit slower. But a lot of people reckon mine was that bit quicker because of wear, you know, a bit of wear and tear on the engine as time's gone on. It sort of loosened itself up and become a bit freer. But I mean now, there's a fair bit of headroom, but my engine will be pulling a little bit more than this one does. That's just, like I said, that's one of them nitty gritty things. This is, you know, realistically what a 125 should do. Mine was just a bit special. And I'm running the same setup, whether maybe that shape of engine, you know, in them models were produced a tiny bit more power, I don't know. Maybe because it's geared differently, same again, I'm not sure. Could be the case that I could just change the sprockets, maybe go one up on the front and it might react a lot like my one used to. It could be something as simple as that. I might do it, I'll see how I feel. But yeah, that's how you kill a Honda. So I'd really and truly recommend, no matter how much you know your bike. I mean, I've owned this bike for nearly 2 years, about a year and a half, I think it works out, maybe a bit over. You know, I know the bike like the back of my hand. I mean, I've had it in pieces so many times, maybe not engine-wise, but you know, I've had literally everything off and out the bike loads of times, and now, in this case, I have had an engine out and I have had quite a few bits of the engine off. And it's nice to see it, you know, it's nice to work out, and you know, when you've got a little bit of general knowledge and then about how it works, and then you take it apart and you move it around and you see how it works, it's interesting. And it almost fills the gaps in your knowledge by seeing it work. So it's, you know, it wasn't a massively expensive mistake, you know, I'd rather be doing it on this bike than, you know, when I get a 600, say, and I'd rather blow up a 125 engine than a 600 engine. You know, it's going to cost me a lot more money, and it's going to be a lot more pain in the arse to faff around with, and a lot heavier. So, you know, you live and learn. But I mean, effectively, my engine, I said blow up, but my engine didn't blow up. It was just tapping. I mean, as I said, I still did a good, about 40 miles on it. Granted, about 20 of them I was still flooring at about 70 because I was on my way somewhere. Then the rest were about sort of 50-60 mile an hour, and it was still pulling them speeds with no oil in it, because I couldn't go anywhere to get any put in. You know, it was just easier for me just to get myself back. There's no point in putting oil in realistically. It wouldn't, you know, it's not going to save it ultimately. It might quieten it down a bit, but you know, once it's gone, it's gone. And I could maybe put a new top end on it and it might be fine. But then again, it may have put a bit of strain on the bottom end, so it was just easier just to put a whole new engine in it. For the sake of, you know, I need the bike pretty much every day, so for the sake of spending ages trying to fix my one, it was easier just to put one in that I knew was working. So yeah, that's if anyone was wondering, no matter how much abuse you give one of these bikes, and you've seen how much abuse I've given this bike and what it's survived, the one way to kill it is run it out of oil. That will kill it. And obviously another thing is I can't actually pinpoint how long it went without oil. Or, you know, and it probably got to the point where it was burning a little bit, and it then just got to the point on that day when it probably burnt that last small amount, which made that ultimate difference that it wasn't able to pick up enough to lubricate the top end ultimately. So yeah, you know, you live and learn. And it's, you know, now it's all sorted, I can laugh about it. And ultimately it is funny because it's not cost me a massive amount of money, and it's a lesson learned. So I definitely recommend checking your oil at least every couple of days at worst. Because, you know, it was very, very fortunate. I was very, very fortunate that a friend of mine had a replacement to hand. You know, otherwise it could have been the case of searching around eBay. That's another matter, that's strange. Yeah, it could have been the case of searching around eBay, and I've looked on there, and they're 250 to sort of £500 mark. Obviously the lower range have got a hell of a lot more miles than I paid for this engine. So I effectively paid half the price for on eBay, about half the mileage. You know, you've got engines on there 10 to 20,000 miles on with like £250. So, you know, I've got this one, 100 quid, 5,000 miles on it. So, you know, it's just one of them things I was extremely fortunate about it. It could have been a lot worse. So, yeah, back to my good old ways. Back with a fully functional and it's smooth like butter, this engine. Not that mine wasn't, but it just sounds gorgeous. I mean, it was almost torture riding mine at home with the tapping. You could hear it no matter how loud I put music on, just to cover up the drony tappy noise. It was just eating away at my brain. It was heartbreaking for me to do something that stupid. You know, I'm not the most mechanically inclined person in the world. You've got to be a bit of an idiot. I mean, never got me mechanically inclined to run your bike out of oil. You've got to be an idiot, and that's what I was. You know, I was being a bit naive and just expecting everything to be okay. And like I said, up until that point it was, but yeah, I mean, the sort of the type of stuff that I've indulged in the past about a year now. I've had the project bike for about 8 months, I think, about 7-8 months, and you know, this type of stuff that I've indulged in doing on that I never would have attempted before, and I've learned a lot from it. So I mean, I can't talk much about it because it will give a lot of it away, but I've learned a lot from that bike, mechanically wise sort of thing. So, you know, for me to do such a stupid thing and run a bike out of oil, you know, it's one of the most stupidest things you can do, you know. Of all the things, of all the mistakes you can make, of all the easy mistakes you can make, you know, not checking your oil, it's got to be at the top, you know. But as I said, you know, you got to live and learn from it, and I'm sharing my experience. That's what this channel is ultimately for. You know, you see a couple of cool things and you see some good footage and a couple of idiots and all that stuff. But ultimately, you know, it is embarrassing on my behalf, but it's also funny, and I've got to put it out there. And if it ultimately helps people in some way, I mean, obviously the knowledge of a flywheel is going to help people, because I was at a massive loss. You know, when you've got spark and you've got fuel, you know, you've compression, you've got all the stuff you would need for an engine to go, and it doesn't go. It's horrible to try and work out. And all I was getting was popping and banging and backfires and flames. That was it. So, you know, yeah, it was a massive head scratch, really, especially at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning. You just don't know what to do. So, you know, hopefully that bit of knowledge, hopefully that gets out there for anyone attempting it and helps them out. But also, yeah, make sure to check your oil first and foremost, and then you won't have to. But yeah, massive respect for all the support I've been getting. I've had a couple of people message me about the build and try and fettle their way in for some answers of what the bike is, what my plans are with it, but I'm not going to spoil it. It's not going to be long, you know, early part of next year, it should be completed. I mean, I'm talking probably 2-3 months now. I should hopefully have the majority of the build finished. And then it'll be the case of unveiling it. I can hear it, but I can't see it. So yeah, so it won't be long, I'll unveil it, and definitely follow me on all my, obviously, my Instagram pages and stuff like that, because I frequently put stuff up on there. And again, try not to reveal too much that will allow you to distinguish what it is. But you know, you will see some stuff on there. So I'm going to leave it at that for this one. You know, ride safe and check your oil.